So I watched Smile in anticipation of seeing Smile 2 tonight. I know a lot of people whose horror opinions I trust loved Smile, so I thought it would be a safe bet to leave it till Spooktober because sometimes, when you do what I do and you decide to have 31 horror movies that you've never fucking seen before, you're only going off grapevine. So there are times where some parts you're like, oh, that was a kind of a weak, you might have five in a row that aren't that good. So I was like, well, I'll save this. I'll keep it in my fucking pocket, and I know that Smile 2 is coming out in October, so I'll pull it out before then because I know this is probably going to be okay. Um, Now, I watched this at 10 p.m. at night with some peanut M&Ms in the dark, just like God intended. This is creepy as shit. This is a creepy fucking film. This got me multiple times. It's quite good. I was just shy of the high beats per minute. By the way, when I say BPM that is beats per minute. I have a fucking heart rate monitor that I rate horror movies on, just to see. I've got a playlist also. If you just want high BPM movies, like movies that scared the fuck out of me, basically, I've got a whole playlist for that shit. Um, so this was just on the cusp, right? The cusp is 80. 80 and above is high BPM. This was 79. Gonjam and Sinister and all that sort of shit, they're in the high BPM. This, though, has the same vibe as those. Even though it didn't get in there, it was like, if they're A plus scare, it's like an A minus scare. I really enjoyed this one, even though it's not a new story, right? But it has enough fresh in it that I really enjoyed it. Be warned though, if self-harm or suicide is a trigger for you, this is one of the main story plots. So don't, or just make your own choice about that. I want you to be safe when you're watching horror, especially good horror like this that is spooky. So enter at your own risk. Decide if that is for you. But I think it's a pretty safe scare bet for most fucking people. Like, this got me 2 or 3 times. That usually means it will get most people 2 or 3 times. And that makes me pretty excited for Smile 2. So, please be fucking good. We've had really good horror sequels and prequels this year, so I'm hoping Smile 2 is good. Smile follows Rose, who works in a hospital as an emergency psychologist. A really frantic patient named Laura comes in saying that an entity is after her, and the entity takes on forms of other people and causes them to do terrible things, all while having this very fucking creepy smile on their face. As Rose is trying to de-escalate the situation and calm Laura dies by suicide in a particularly brutal fashion, and all of a sudden Rose starts to see the same thing that Laura was complaining of. That's right, she catches a real terminal case of the fucking spookies, and that's basically what this movie is about. From there, as an audience member, you basically get to play Is It Mental or Is It Monster, which is a horror genre classic. There are lots of movies that decide to play Is it Mental or Is It Monster, and this does it better than most. What an iconic game. This movie is really, really creepy. Like, massive The Ring vibes. I'm talking the American remake. I love any movie that deals with curses or a cursed object or event. Maybe it's because I'm a giant nerd who loves law and rules. So those movies tend to give you a rule set or law and go, this is what it does. How would you beat it? And I couldn't help but think of how I would try to beat this thing the entire movie. This is also a really brutal curse mechanic. So it made a lot of sense to me why this was such a popular film when it came out, because it's fucking the curse mechanic. When a good curse mechanic comes, it's like any good video game that comes out that has a really good gameplay mechanic. You're like, very fucking clever, well done. So I get why it's getting a sequel. I get why people loved it. Sosie Bacon as Rose, she's brilliant. Many times because she's going through such hard mental, like, she's been fucking wrung out mentally by this curse. There's lots of times where she reminded me of evil Bilbo. She's real like sunken eyelids, creepy shit. Um, I did empathize with her. Like I did feel bad for her. There was a lot of times where I just was like, God, please just let me get you a pillow and a blanket. I'll watch over you. Like just get some real honk shoe sleep. Like she looks in a good way fucking terrible in this movie as it goes on. Kyle Gallner is great as a person you always need in every Curse movie. You need the cop that has access to the files or previous files. He fulfills that role fucking perfectly. I recently watched Strange Darling with him in it, which I will do a review on. Don't know if I'll do it in October, but I will do a review on because it's getting a lot of hype. And after seeing this, I'm like, are you coming for Dan Stevens' Scream King status? Because drama. But no, honestly, he's pretty fucking good in this, and he's been good in a lot of horror films. I don't know if he wants to continue acting in horror films, but he's fucking good in them. So I'd love to see him in it. It was also sick seeing Cal Penn from Harold and Kumar in this one as like the head of the ward, the psychiatric ward. I love those movies in high school, and he's really great as Rose's boss. So I'm always happy to see Cal Penn and stuff. I think this did a reasonable job at not being annoying, flicking between reality and mind. There are some movies that they do too many dream sequences, or they do too many like illusions, that you just start to fucking resent it. You're like, I don't even think this is fucking real. I don't care what happens to this person because none of this shit is real. They're probably going to wake up at the end. This is good. This does that in the right amount. Like there's enough reality and illusion that you're like, okay, I'm not getting too shitty at one or the other. Almost all the jump scare scenes are really good, and most of them got me. There are some really creepy scenes involving dark hallways and dark closets, and it just goes to show you that convoluted scare scenes don't always work, right? Like this was simple, like what the fuck is in that dark hallway? Something spooky, good enough for me. Really, like simple shit done really well is all I need, and this did a lot of really simple shit really well. The design of one of the creatures at the end was fucking great. It sort of has like a, this isn't my final form sort of thing going on. Because when I saw its first form, I was sort of like, damn, I was hoping that would be scarier. It gets scarier. Just trust it. Just trust it. I was grossed out and happy at the same time. So the creature design, pretty good. There are a few issues with this movie though. It could be that it's a few years old now, but if you are sick of trauma being the monster or one of the monsters, this does float into that territory a bit. Maybe if I'd seen it in 2022, I would have been okay, but I feel like in 2023, trauma was the monster for a lot of movies. So seeing that after seeing a lot of horror movies in 2023, I was sort of a bit like, is trauma the monster? Is the monster your mind? It does float into that a little bit, but it does come good at the end. Also, Jessie T. Usher, who is A-Train in The Boys, he plays the boyfriend in this, and they sort of made him somewhat of a bastard for no reason. He's sort of just got given that role to make Kyle Gallner look better, I believe, which sucks because he's a really, like Jessie T. Usher is a really good actor. I've unfortunately only seen him in cocky dickhead roles, right? Like A-Train's that, this is that. I just want him to play. He can play good people. Most of his characters have a core of goodness, and I think I would like to just see him as a good boyfriend or a good person or a hero. I would like to see that. Can we just give Jessie T. Usher a good fucking role? A few of the many jump scares also rely too heavily on, I don't want to say cheap, but they are just loud noise, like bang bang clash jump scares. You know those jump scares where you don't see it coming, but someone just screams at the camera. There is a few of them that are like that. However, of the vast majority, Most of them are well earned. So I was like, you know what, I don't care. That's fair enough. But you will say, oh, you bastard, a couple of times. I recommend watching this stuff if you love curse movies. The Ring, it's sort of reminiscent of The Conjuring 2 at points. If you love jump scares, this is fucking plenty of good ones. If you like supernatural themes at all, I do. Supernatural themes tend to get to me the most. This is a good one for that. I don't recommend watching this if the idea of harm coming to an adorable cat called Mustache frightens you. Why? Mustache, such a sweet boy, such a sweet name. Why? If you hate plain Monsterverse Mental, I know some people do, fine, don't go into this one. If you like finality in your endings, this does not have that, so be warned going in. The recommend for this is somewhat obvious, and I think it's because it's recent and good, but if you like this one, I highly recommend Talk to Me. If you haven't seen it, it is a curse film like Smile, like The Ring, like The Conjuring, but it's about a group of friends who get in possession of an embalmed hand that allows them to allow spirits to possess them. The problem is the feeling of being possessed in Talk to Me is like a drug, and I don't know if you know, teenagers and drugs, if Harold the Giraffe has taught you anything, you know that they don't mix. It's one of the best supernatural horror films of the fucking decade. I take that shit, like, I'll stand on point for that. And it's Aussie, so it gets extra points. You know, home team advantage, that'll happen. Really highly recommend Talk to Me if you haven't seen it. Another one in this vein is the movie Sinister. If you somehow haven't seen Sinister, lots of people have, go give it a spin. It stars Ethan Hawke as a true crime writer who stupidly moves his family into the house that he's writing true crime about. While he's there, he starts to realize that there might be a pattern going on with the house. And things get really fucking scary from there. I watched this with my dad for Father's Day because I loved it. I love this film, and he hadn't seen it, and he's a horror fan. And we watched it, and at the end, he was sort of like, he was like, "This is getting me, dude. This is freaking me the fuck out." I mean, he did smoke a joint and a half, but yeah, this film freaked him out, and it's pretty fucking scary. I was like, oh yeah, this holds up, even though came out in 2012. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's often heralded as the scariest movie of all time. It's always at the top of like the science horror lists and all that sort of shit. It's simple, it's scary, it's got Ethan Hawke. What more do you want in a horror film? Go see Sinister. As always, thanks for watching. I hope to see you tomorrow for another review. I'm hoping Smile 2 is good because I'm about to review it. I'm going to review it after I see it tonight. Please, please, please be fucking good. Fuck, I hope it's good. Peace.